Well, I'm out doing a little bit of late evening scouting, just looking for deer and waiting for them to come out into the field. But I've got a new pair of Alpen Teton binoculars. You know, a lot of times people will ask me, what binoculars are best in low light situations? Well, that's simple. The answer is the Alpen Teton binoculars. And the reason for that is they have the Abbey Koenig prism, which simply means it allows 94% of available light to get through these binoculars, making them an excellent pair of binoculars in low light. So if you're looking for a pair of binoculars that will see detail into a dark timber right now, this time of the evening, make sure you check out the Alpen Teton binoculars. You'll be glad you did. Oh, here's some deer coming out right now. Hi, I'm Rick White with Alpine Optics, and I want to talk to you today about the new Alpen Shasta Ridge binoculars. Now, they're lighter than the older Shasta Ridges, new sleek design, fog-proof, waterproof, BAK4 prisms, phase-coated, and the lenses are multi-coated. Inexpensive pair of binoculars with great quality. So if you're looking to save a little money, but still put quality in your backpack, make sure you check out the Alpen Shasta Ridge binoculars. You know, here we are midsummer here in Iowa, and I'm just out doing some scouting, glassing deer, kind of taking an inventory of what I've got, and doing it from a distance. I've got one of the new Alpen spotting scopes. It's a 20 by 60, but one of the things I really like about this, it comes with a tripod, and it's got micro adjustments, so it's real easy to zoom in and move around and find those animals. But basically, this is a great tool to help me manage the farm all year round. If you're looking for a great way to do some scouting, do it in the evening from a distance with a nice spotting scope. Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of On the Hunt with Alpine Optics. I'm your host Rick White, and on tonight's show we have fellow ProStaff member Mike McDonald all the way from Kentucky, and another show special at the end of the show. So sit back, relax, and we'll see you in just a few minutes. On the Hunt with Alpine Optics, and you know, tonight we've got Mr. Mike McDonald all the way from Kentucky. Mike, how you doing this evening?
I'm hanging in there, Rick.
All right, well, let me update folks just a little bit, and you can jump right in there. But you know, I just came from there, which we're going to talk about how my deer hunt went and stuff. But not only your wife, but a couple of weeks ago, but now you have been going through the COVID thing. And so I have to ask, I mean, I kind of know because I've been talking to you, but let the folks know how you're doing.
Well, yeah, like you say, my wife, she got sick about 2 weeks ago, and it kicked her in the face. I mean, it knocked her down for about a week and a half. And last week I started feeling bad, and I was sick for about a day and thought it wasn't really a big deal. And I mean, 10, 11 hours later, I felt fine and was good for 3 or 4 days. And then the last 3 or 4 days, it's just been like real nauseating, getting up, moving around. I just feel like I'm going to get sick. But I feel okay. And, you know, my lungs are good other than my normal Kentucky crud allergies that I have. But yeah, I'm feeling a lot better.
And I know you both tested positive, and that my original plan, this past Saturday, Kentucky deer season opened, and I know it's something that you always look forward to doing. So this put a little damper on your Kentucky hunt, but originally I was going to come down and hunt with you, and I had to change my plans. I mean, you still gave me a place to hunt. I just had to work around you a little bit, so to speak, but I was able to slip in on one of your spots because you weren't there. So that, it all worked out good for me. But no, in all seriousness, no, it's a serious thing. And I'm glad that you're starting to feel better, and your wife's already gotten through it, and that's good. So, let's talk a little bit about Kentucky deer season. I mean, it opened early, and, we're going to talk about a few different things. There's some folks out there. Well, let's talk about, hunting over bait. Let's do that just a little bit. And I typically don't most of the time. It is legal in quite a few states. Now, where I live in Iowa, it is not legal. But talk a little bit about, the people that say, oh, you shouldn't do it, or it's not fair. I mean, why do they allow it? And I mean, talk about it.
Okay. So I've only hunted, I've hunted probably 10 or 12 states. Only 2 states that I've hunted will not let you bait. One being Iowa. Was fortunate enough to draw an Iowa tag a couple years ago and come and hunt with you. And in Indiana. Indiana doesn't allow bait also. Now, in Kentucky, we've always been allowed to bait. A lot of people are against baiting. They say it's too easy, but I can tell you, and just personal experience over the last 30 years of hunting in Kentucky on bait, I hunt a farm where there's no ag. There's no agriculture. There's no crops around. It's all wooded. So basically it's a 300-acre wooded farm. So me and my neighbor, we try to shoot the best deer that we can get on our properties. And not always do we have the biggest deer, but that food source is all that we have, unless we have a mass acorn crop. We do have some food plots with some clover, but it's not enough to pull the deer to hold them there year round. So we like to feed them. And what I've noticed is a lot of people think, oh, well, he just put this corn pile out there and the deer just walking into the corn pile. Well, I will promise you, and this goes for every state I've hunted in where you're allowed to bait, from, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, when those deer come in, they're on edge. They know that isn't supposed to be there. They need it to live, and they're used to coming there, but they still know that it's just not a normal thing for it to be there. So they're on high alert. And I'm going to tell you right now, the deer that are coming in are on farms with a lot of corn. If it had 5 corn piles, now you got 5 corn piles to try to figure out where these deer are going to, but they come in on high alert. So if you're just out in the woods and you catch deer coming through a trail, they don't really know you're there. Hunting over a food plot, same way, it's normal. They should be able to come out in that field, walk through that food plot. They're not on high alert. It's just normal to them. So it can be more difficult, actually, probably to hunt over bait than to not hunt over bait.
Yeah, I understand. I kind of understand where you're coming from. In states where it's legal to bait, I feel like you're almost forced to bait, because if you don't bait and your neighbors do, they're going to have all your deer. Now, I just hunted at your place for 4 days, and I was successful, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I was surprised to see, when I was hunting over corn, I did not see a lot of deer. I saw some deer, and I saw some good deer, but I didn't see a lot of deer. And you've got a lot of deer on the farm. So they're, and most of the photos you were getting at were after dark, obviously, but they just don't flock to it, like I thought maybe they would. But anyways, so your season opens Saturday. Any tips for that early season hunter? What do you tell them?
So, I mean, the best things I can tell you for early season, I mean, it's hot outside. Have thin clothes, the thinnest clothes you can get. Try to be as scent free as possible. I've been using Limit Shield products for the last 3 years, and I have been very successful with it, as well as you had been here. The stand that Rick was actually hunting, I've killed 2 velvet bucks in the previous last 2 years, and he was able to get a third one. And the wind was kind of swirling to the corn pile, so you didn't have a perfect wind, but you only had 4 days to hunt, so we had to get you in that stand because we knew that's where the bigger deer were coming to. And scent control, number one. Try less movement in an area. If you're going to be hunting in a certain area, don't try to go in there every day and pull cameras. We use cell cameras now, but a lot of times when we're using regular cameras, it's just you don't want to go in there and pull those cards every other day. Just stay out as much as you can and pull those cards once a month, because the more traffic you put in there, the more you're going to push something out.
Right. And it was because of the cameras that you had out that really led us to the spots we were hunting. I mean, the deer are somewhat in their summer pattern still, so they're a little bit more predictable now than they would be in a couple, now that they're going hardhorn. I mean, as we speak, I think half your deer just in the last couple of days have gone from velvet to hardhorn, where they're actually stripping their velvet off their antlers. And once they do that, all that travel pattern seems to change right then. So, I mean, it's getting ready to change. And before long, we'll have that lull that everybody's kind of talking about. So it gets tough. It really does. I mean, you got to get on them right away.
Yeah. And most of my deer right now, just over the last couple of days, they've all went nocturnal, and we actually had cooler weather this year. It wasn't terrible. I mean, it was still in the upper 80s, but we had some 60-degree mornings, which was nice for September. You didn't get the luxury of walking out in 90% humidity at 94 degrees like we have in years past. So you got a little bit better weather. It's still hot in the evening, but it cools down pretty fast, once the shade gets in there. But once them bucks change that pattern, I pretty much just stay out of the woods until it cools off and just get ready for that rut. That first week of hunting can be awesome in Kentucky. It can be awesome anywhere. A lot of states that come in October, you don't have very long, and your all's deer just pretty much disappear.
Yeah, I mean, it was hot. Now, I mean, it was hot, and we walk in with as light of clothing as you possibly can, and you still sweat. But you talked about a Limashield. They've got that foam. And when I got to my stand, I just basically wiped it all over me, and it obviously helped. But so the first night, Mike, opening day, I had a really nice deer come in, and he just wouldn't quarter for a shot, and he was a little bit spooky. Like you said, they come out and they're constantly looking, and he would come out and head towards the corn and turn around and run back in the woods. And then he'd come out a little bit later, and he'd get there, and he'd get to the corn, and eat a couple, and then he'd turn around and took off. And he never gave me that shot I was looking for. Now on night 2, I had one of your biggest deer at 25 yards. And anyways, you're going to just have to watch the hunt when it comes out to see what happened there. But he didn't come home with me. So, and then on night 3, I had a nice velvet buck come out, and I wasn't, I waited for I left him. He was out there for about 10 minutes, and I was hoping maybe one of them other bigger ones would step out, and they didn't. And so I ended up taking a good deer and full velvet. And it's only the second one that I've ever shot in velvet. So tell the folks a little bit about, I mean, your deer in velvet. You have the opportunity to shoot a velvet deer when your season comes in Kentucky.
Yeah, we're one of the few states that you can kill a velvet buck in, and Kentucky's proud of it. Over the last couple of years, they've realized that. We've had more out-of-state hunters. Our licenses have went up. I think about 5 or 6 years ago, you could come here and hunt. I think it was like $50 for a deer tag and $150 for a non-resident license, so roughly $200 and something dollars. And I think you said your tag was what, 180?
185 and then 150, I think.
50 for, yeah. And of course, Rick came up and turkey hunted with me, and we did a little hunting on Fort Knox. So he had his Kentucky license, so he didn't have to buy it. But people come to Kentucky for that velvet buck. I like shooting velvet bucks. I've killed, I think I've killed 5. It is a little bit more complicated, you know, trying to get them out of the woods without tearing their velvet off, as you've seen. It's delicate, so you got to be careful with it. It's easy, you know, it's easier if you have a way to cart it out or pick it up and put it in a cart and kind of have somebody walk and hold the antlers up. And of course, we're going to mount that deer for Rick, and he'll have him a nice little velvet buck to take home to Iowa with him.
Yeah, that's right. And let me clarify one thing now. I did have to buy that hunting license. I just bought it during turkey season. I didn't have to buy it for deer season because I already had it. So
yeah,
I don't want anyone thinking that I get free tags, because I certainly don't. But, hey, you know, and I'd like to give a shout out to one of our pro staff members, John Dallas, and he may be watching. I can't tell who's watching right now because I'm doing this on my phone. But, you know, John jumped in and took your place because you weren't able to get out, obviously. And John, we were driving back and forth. I was staying in Indiana and driving to your place, which is about an hour and a half drive. And he was driving actually. And he drove and then got up in a stand. Well, you know, the way we had this set up, and this was your setup, the trees that you have, there's not a lot of great trees, especially in the area I was hunting. So you had a ladder stand in a cedar tree, but there was no place else for another stand. And you had a blind down below the stand about 5 yards from it. And John was actually in the blind filming at ground level, and I was in the tree stand. So sometimes it gets a little bit difficult to put everything together because I'm used to communicating with my camera guy. I can whisper to him and those kinds of things. But when we're that far apart, I hope you're on him, John. I hope you're on him. But it turned out great. We got a great hunt. Velvet 8-point. Paul may be showing the picture of it. And it's just a good quality deer, and all on film. And we'll air it at some point on Through the Eyes of a Hunter. So, you know, I know as soon as you're feeling better, you're going to get out. Do you change the way you hunt a little bit as we get closer to October, or you know, I know you've got an area where it's really not being pressured. Do those deer tend to kind of continue to do the same thing, or how you gonna approach that?
Well, we had a lot of pressure in there this weekend. You know, 3 or 4 days of hunting. We'll let it dial down. I'll keep putting food out there, and I won't hunt it back in there probably for a couple of weeks. So won't get a lot of hunting pressure. But what I'm going to mainly concentrate on is getting in thicker areas. I know where my deer bed at. A lot of them, they like bedding on north-facing slopes to get out of the heat in the mornings. And what I'll try to do is I'll try to get between my food plots and where they're bedding and maybe try to catch them coming, not so much on the corn, but if I can catch them coming and going. But this year, usually I'm always tagged out, you know, the first week or two in September. And I think this year I might try to hold off and wait till I can get my gun out.
Yeah. Now you hunt. So I hunted with a compound bow. I shoot a Matthews. You hunt with a crossbow. And I know you've done both, but you know, we're kind of on two ends of the spectrum. So talk a little bit about, you know, hunting with a crossbow versus a compound bow. And then what are some of the accessories and what are you shooting? How heavy a broadhead? What kind of broadhead? I mean, what have you had good luck with as far as the crossbow?
Okay. Well, I'm glad you brought that up. So opening day here in Kentucky, I did hunt. I hunted by myself. I was supposed to be filming Rick, but since I couldn't, I decided I wanted to get out. I mean, just basically get out of the house. I've had COVID and I've been sitting inside. So I went hunting, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't felt good for 2 weeks, so I really hadn't shot my bow. So Friday, I got my bow out, and I mean, I was just so weak that it was all I could do to hold it back. I mean, that's just how bad this COVID is. And I decided to take my crossbow. I hunt with a bow and arrow, of course, Matthews. But I also shoot for Killer Instinct, and it's a great crossbow. And I took it. I actually passed a deer Saturday morning, a nice 8-pointer in velvet. It was right at first light. I hadn't been hunting 15 minutes. And it was actually the deer that you didn't get a shot on the first night you was there. So he was making his rounds at the farm, and he was just kind of, you know, and he was a good deer, but I just, I really didn't, that ain't the one I wanted. The one I wanted, he come to visit you.
Yeah, well, he's still there. He's still there, just so you know.
He is, and we'll get a picture of him again. He's around there somewhere. Probably a little bit more spooky coming to that corn pile, but he is around there.
Now, what do you shoot for weight in your compound bow, and what? I mean, how does a person pick the arrows, pick the broadhead to, you know? I mean, you talk to the pro shop, but I mean, what do you use? And you've done a lot of this over the years, so.
What the broadhead that I actually use right now, it's actually called a Meat Seeker, and it was made by Trophy Ridge for a long time, and I think they may have gotten bought out. But it's a piston driven broadhead, so I wish I had one in here with me, but the end of it is separated from the collar and the blades are on there, and whenever it hits, it pushes the tip back and opens the blades up. So as long as it has, it's pushing, the blades stay open, and I've had very, very good success. I've been shooting that broadhead since 2007. It's went through hands of 2 different companies, and I love that broadhead. I shoot that broadhead in 100 grain in my bow and in the crossbow. Now, they do make one for a crossbow that has a little bit fatter collar on it, and I guess that's, so that when you're shooting field points, it's a little fatter diameter so it's not hitting the actual boat on the crossbow. But I mean, as far as shooting an animal with it, you can use either one, because when those blades open, it's going to let that arrow go through it anyway. And I think I'm not real sure what the crossbow bolt weight is on that crossbow. The ones that I'm shooting in my crossbow are specially made for that bow. The bow that I'm shooting is called a SWAT XP by Killer Instinct, and with that crossbow, they had trouble with the knock because due to the speed, they had to make an aluminum knock, and the knock is actually like a reverse moon, so there's not a slit, so you can't really change the bolt, but they're factory spec bolts.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And so I was shooting my Matthews, and I was actually, I went to a different arrow this year, and they were trying to remember the name of them. Fleetwood Furies is what they were, and I'm shooting an interlock Carnage broadhead, which is a new broadhead. I've shot a lot of broadheads and a lot of good broadheads, but the Carnage I've shot a few deer with, and I'm still getting used to them, and so far I seem to like them pretty good. So but whatever you shoot, I hear we don't hunt with crossbows in Iowa unless you have a doctor's permit or whatever, you can get one. But I hear a lot of people say, "Well, you're shooting a crossbow. That's not fair. They shoot a lot further." But in all reality, they're not much more effective than a compound bow, really, are they?
No, I mean, a lot of people think, oh, it's a crossbow, you can shoot 100 yards. Well, with my crossbow, I can shoot 100 yards, but I can also shoot my bow at 100 yards. And both of them, I can get a 6 to 8 inch group at 100 yards with my bow and my crossbow. I shoot a lot at long distance with my bow because I do elk hunt, and I want to be able to, if I can shoot at 100 yards and hit an 8 inch circle at 100, when I got that 25 or 30 yard shot, it's a chip shot. You don't even think about it. It's just being dialed in. But a crossbow is so much louder, 25, 30 yards is their effective range, because deer jump the string. That with a bow and arrow. And crossbows just as bad. They hear that pop and they're ducking. And if you're trying to shoot at 70 yards, I mean, I don't care if you're shooting 500 feet per second. I can tell you right now, I've shot deer. The last 2 I killed, one was with a crossbow and one was with the bow and arrow, and both of them probably dropped 3 to 5 inches equally. My bow shooting, it's a Matthews Trax, it's probably shooting 290, and my crossbow shooting around 415, and at 25 yards, and a deer can still drop 5 inches. So that just tells you how on edge they can be. So, yeah.
Right. I mean, people have to understand that a deer can react, and you can't. Now, the one reason I think some people think, a crossbow is maybe a little easier, and maybe in one aspect it is, because, you can put a scope on it and go out and with little practice be pretty accurate. Where with a compound, you kind of got to know what you're doing, and you got to practice, and you got to have that same anchor point. But once you have your compound bow dialed in my opinion, it's just as accurate as a crossbow. It really is if you're a good shooter.
Absolutely.
So, but anyways, hey, let's get off the subject just a little bit and talk about early season waterfowl hunting. I know you're a big waterfowler, and I don't know if you normally get out early in the season, but I think your goose season is already open.
They actually changed our goose season. We were looking at the dates the other day. This year, they're actually, I think, bringing it in on the 15th. Usually it comes in on the 1st of September. Now I don't really do a lot of early season goose hunting. And we do have plenty of them, and we have what's called a nuisance goose season. So they're actually, they up it from 3 geese to 5. So you can kill 5 per person per day. And it's basically just to get rid of the nuisance geese that stay here year round in Kentucky. But what I look forward to every year, and in the last 3 or 4 years, I haven't been able to do it because I've actually been fortunate to know people that have drawn elk tags in Kentucky. And it just so happens that the archery bull elk season falls in that same time frame. But wood duck hunting, early September wood duck hunting can be excellent in Kentucky, along our rivers and creeks. And there's nothing more exciting than having wood ducks whizzing through your decoys. And it's just, a great time to get out and hunt. And our season lasts for about 5 days for early wood duck. And this year I probably will get to go because I don't have anybody that I know that got drawn for an archery elk tag this year in Kentucky.
Now, early season, do you decoy ducks just like you do later in the season, or do you hunt them a little different?
Yeah, we use decoys. Wood ducks decoy really good. What I found best is, and we can shoot wood ducks and teal, but the majority of the ducks that we shoot here are wood ducks. We do kill a few blue wing and green wing teal that are migrating down. And of course, all of our wood ducks are migrating. So, I mean, we have some that stick around, but most of them are migrating through. But what I do is I'll put out 6 or 8 wood duck decoys, 4 or 5 teal decoys, and a couple of mojos. You put them spinning wings out, and those wood ducks will suck to those mojos. And I've had them come in last year during our regular season. Me and my cousin was hunting, and we had about 250 land in our decoys. And it was so chaotic, we didn't even shoot because you couldn't really pick out one. So we just let them go, and then we ended up getting our limit just a few at a time as they came back.
Right, I got you. Before I got to your place, I went to Ohio and went out to Lake Erie fishing, and because of the weather, that hurricane, all that rain came up through there, so I only got out one day. But we and I think Paul's got a photo, but we limited out. There's 4 of us, and we're allowed 6 keepers, and we limited out by almost, it wasn't even 10 o'clock in the morning, and we were done. And we caught some big fish too. And what was kind of neat is while we were pulling our lines in after we caught our limit, we caught 6 more fish, and the smallest one was 4 pounds. So, we were just hammering them. Now I headed your direction to stay with John, and the guys went out the next morning, and there were 6 of them in a boat, and they were done by 8:30 in the morning. So, what a great fishing trip that was. But anyways, hey, I want to talk a little bit. We're getting it's about 25 after, and I guess before we jump into the weekly special, I should jump in and ask Paul if there's any questions or anything, Paul. And I know you had something with the Arkansas DNR that you wanted to show us.
Well, I don't have any questions exactly. Let's see. Let's look here. We got Edwin Shirts. He's talking to you a little bit, but he's mostly just saying hi.
Okay.
And that's great. But right now there's a magazine that is coming out for it's free in the state of Arkansas, and it's the Arkansas Hunting Guidebook. And right there in the middle is this guy. And I don't know how he got in there. Exactly.
He's a good-looking guy. That guy, yeah.
Okay, I'll take your word for it, there, Rick. This guy, I don't know. But no, if you pick up this book, if you pick up this book in Arkansas, you'll be able to get your code for 25% off a pair of some great binoculars. These are the Shasta Ridge Series 10 by 42 binoculars, model 394SR, and you'll get a 25% off if you pick up that catalog and use it. And there's Rick's claim to fame. Is that what it is?
Yeah. There you go. Well, hey, that's a great offer. And I'm going to talk about another one right now. This week's special, okay, and I'm reading it right off my sheet here, is the Alpen Kodiak 2.5 by 10 by 50 scope. It's a new scope, general all-purpose magnification, great for deer hunting applications, 50 millimeter lens, great for light gathering. Now, lifetime warranty with all the Alpen scopes. Don't forget that. Great glass, multiple coated layers on all lens surfaces. And all our Alpen scopes come with rings and the flip-up lens covers. So, I mean, some great options things for that scope. But anyway, regular price on that scope is $349.99. So on the hunt special this week through Sunday, those are going to be $175. Now that's inexpensive. Mike, you have one of these scopes. Talk briefly about it.
Yes, I actually got that scope a couple months ago, and I actually put it on my slug gun that I'm going to use this year on Fort Knox, which is a 220 Savage. It's a bolt action 20 gauge shotgun. I put that scope on there. That particular scope, I believe it has a 30 millimeter tube, correct?
I think you're right.
You didn't mention that, but it does.
50 millimeter lens.
No, the tube.
Yeah, I think it's a 30 mil. I think it's a 30 mil.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's a 30 millimeter tube. So it takes a bigger ring and base, and they actually provide that with the scope, as he was saying, with the flip up covers. And I put that on my slug gun. Now, obviously, the scope isn't shooting and making it accurate, so to speak of. But I mean, with that gun, it's touching bullet holes at 100 yards, and the light is just incredible. That 30 millimeter tube, and that's what the bigger tube does. It also helps with lighting, and it's just a great scope. And I'll probably get me another one.
All right. So again,
it has the tube diameter 30 millimeter Picatinny rails, and you flip open covers, and the eye relief is 91 millimeter, which is actually fairly good.
Right. So once again, the Alpen Kodiak 2.5 by 10 by 50. Okay. Regular price $349.99, on the hunt special $175. And all you need to do is go to bresserusa.com or alpen.com, and when you click on that scope, there's a promo code that'll pop up below, and just type in "on the hunt" with no spacing, and you will get the sale price. And again, that goes through Sunday at midnight. So take advantage of these weekly specials. They don't come around all the time here. So Mike, hey, I hope you're feeling better soon. And you get out and start doing some hunting. I appreciate you jumping in and doing the show. And we had hoped to do it together side by side. And I just took off this morning and drove all the way home. And now I'm home and going to relax for a little bit. So
there was one thing I wanted to add before I forget, just so people know that's watching. In Kentucky, our crossbow season does not come in on the first day of our archery season. Just throwing that out there so there's no confusion. I actually have a crossbow permit, and the first 2 weeks of our season is actually archery only, unless you have a exemption permit, which I have, so that I'm allowed to hunt for the first 2 weeks. But then after that, our crossbow season stays until like January the 15th or 20th.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. So you've got lots of opportunities in the state of Kentucky. We've run out of time, I believe. Paul, good seeing you. Mike, appreciate it once again. And next week, don't miss next week's show. Brenda Valentine is going to be back on, and we're going to pick her brain on a lot of different things. She's been all over the place. So, but for now, we certainly appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you next Wednesday on the hunt with Alpine Optics. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Hi, I'm Rick White with Alpen Optics, and I want to talk to you today about the new Alpen Shasta Ridge binoculars. Now, they're lighter than the older Shasta Ridges, new sleek design, fog-proof, waterproof, BAK4 prisms, phase-coated, and the lenses are multi-coated. Inexpensive pair of binoculars with great quality. So if you're looking to save a little money, but still put quality in your backpack, make sure you check out the Alpen Shasta Ridge binoculars. Well, I'm out doing a little bit of late evening scouting, just looking for deer and waiting for them to come out into the field. But I've got a new pair of Alpen Teton binoculars. You know, a lot of times people will ask me, what binoculars are best in low light situations? Well, that's simple. The answer is the Alpen Teton binoculars. And the reason for that is they have the Abbey Koenig prism, which simply means it allows 94% of available light to get through these binoculars, making them an excellent pair of binoculars in low light. So if you're looking for a pair of binoculars that will see detail into a dark timber right now, this time of the evening, make sure you check out the Alpen Teton binoculars. You'll be glad you did. Oh, here's some deer coming out right now.